Y'all, I have a confession to make, and that is that I have not been doing as well as I thought I was doing. Oh my goodness. I just recently posted a video talking about my 4-year anniversary in recovery, and I've realized in the last couple of weeks that I was not completely honest. I haven't been honest with myself about what my challenges and my struggles have been. And the Lord used, of all things, the TV show Grey's Anatomy. Okay, don't judge me. We all have our things. Start bringing this to my attention. A character on that show struggles with addiction, and she was talking about an addict mindset versus healthy mindset. Oh, I think I've been operating a lot in the mindset of addiction. I deserve more. I want to live for my own comfort. I've been walking through a lot, so give myself a break. And then, of course, the way the Lord works, right? He uses multiple things in our life to bring things to our attention. So I started thinking about this because of my TV shows. And then I'm reading in my personal devotion in Romans, Paul is reminding us that it's not just about the behaviors that we do, just because we do the right things. If our heart isn't aligned with that, then it's not really obedience. And then, okay, right, 1, 2, 3 times the charm. Then the Sunday sermon this week at church, our pastor was preaching out of James, and that passage was on not just being a hearer of the word, but a doer of the word. And I was like, okay, Lord, I get it. I get it. I have been hearing a lot of things, but I haven't really been doing them. I haven't been connecting my heart to my behaviors. I've been going through the motions of recovery. Addiction is sneaky. The enemy is sneaky. Even when we feel like we have moved beyond things, even when we've experienced freedom, our own flesh desires, the lies that the enemy wants to bring in, can become louder than the voice of the Lord in our life. And that is what has happened for me in the last several months. I've backslid in my addictions, and it's ugly, and I don't like it. My mindset isn't in the right place. I am more easily frustrated. I'm more tired. I want to sleep a lot. I'm not hearing from the Lord as directly or as intimately, because there's been so much fruitfulness in certain areas of my life in the last year and a half. This other area where things were not super healthy, I've been able to justify and minimize and pretty much overlook, because look over here, look what God's doing, look at all of this stuff. So it's okay that these other things are kind of just hidden off in a corner and not doing very well. But just like I talked about in one of my recent videos, I think it might have been my last one when I was talking about trauma and wounds, is that when we have crap that's undealt with in our life, it eventually starts to infect other parts of our life. I've adopted a mindset that I think a lot of us have adopted during this last year and a half that we have been walking through some really challenging things. As hard as this year has been, it has allowed us to say, well, I've been dealing with all this, so I deserve a break. We've had so much taken away from us, so I deserve to feel comfortable. I deserve some happiness. Where am I going to find that when all of my normal ways of like dealing with life and finding joy have been taken away? Let me find it in any way possible. I remember early on in COVID where just like the toilet paper was gone everywhere. It felt like baking supplies were also gone everywhere, because all of a sudden we were all stuck at home with nothing to do and everybody was just baking. And I remember feeling kind of frustrated, but also kind of proud of myself and like where I was at that time. I frustrated that I was having to find other ways to cope and deal with the frustrations that were of what was happening in the world, but also like, well, no, I've got my recovery under control. I don't need food to bring me comfort anymore. And that was true. Then the pandemic just drug on and on and on. And there was so much political tension and social justice, racial injustice tension in the world. Things happening in the church world, things happening in the world, things happening in my world, where I became exhausted and overwhelmed. And like, the fortitude that I had at the beginning just started slowly slipping away. This point where I found myself this last week, y'all know how I feel about dried mangoes. If you don't, go back, watch some of my previous videos because I've shared my love with the dried mango situation. So this last week I was at Costco buying stuff for my students. It's finals week. We do this thing called snack trolley where we bring snacks all to their rooms and whatever. It's super fun. There's a Costco shopping and I can buy treats for my students. It is not a problem. I can have it in my house. I can bake for them. That is not an issue for me anymore. But I don't tend to shop at Costco for myself because the quantities and volume is just too much for just me to ever really get through. But I happened to be there for students, and I don't even know why I allowed myself to go down the stupid aisle where the stupid dried mangoes are, but I did. I will tell you, I have let my recovery slide in other ways too. There are foods that I've allowed back in, not my non-negotiables, but foods I've allowed back in. I have started snacking a lot more and not sticking to my 3 meals a day that I know is the right amount of food for my body. I don't have an off switch, and so if I don't stick to what I know I need, I will just eat all day. Even if it's healthy food, even if it's fruit and cheese, I will just eat all day. So that stuff has already been creeping back in. And then I'm, sauntering down the aisle at Costco and find myself in front of my biggest temptation food, the stupid freaking dried mangoes. And that addictive mindset of wanting to avoid my feelings, right? We're coming to the end of the school year, which it's a relief that we've made it to the end of the school year, but it's also been a hard year. Already thinking about next year. I'm already borrowing anxiety and frustration for next year that hasn't even happened yet, but I'm not acknowledging that to myself. I'm not taking those things to the Lord. I'm not actually dealing with my heart because that's too hard and I don't want to do that. So what do? I buy the dried mangoes and I buy them on a Thursday, and by Sunday, that whole 2-pound bag of mangoes is gone. 4 days, y'all. 4 days, and I've binged the entire bag. I knew the right things to do. I knew how to get myself back on track. I knew that I probably shouldn't eat the sweet potato tater tots they have in the dining hall, but y'all, next to dried mangoes, the sweet potato tater tots in particular, oh, they call to me. Both the actual foods and how they process in my body have started to get me back into the food thoughts. But in this I deserve mindset, I didn't want to do the hard things. Coming out of this last year and a half, I am exhausted. And I think there was a part of me that didn't want to be honest with the Lord or honest with myself, because I was like, Lord, I've done so many hard things already this year. Don't ask me for one more thing. I know that those foods taste good. They make me feel good. And I know that I go to them for comfort when I should be going to the Lord. I have experienced in the last 4 years of walking in recovery, walking in freedom, is that what the Lord has to offer ultimately is so much better and so much more fulfilling than the momentary instant gratification gain that I get from shoving food in my mouth. I have been trying to do so much in this last year and a half in my own strength, dealing with issues of pride. Y'all know my two big issues, pride and control. Throw in addiction in there and trifecta, right? That's where the I deserve mindset comes from, is it comes from a spirit of pride. It says, this is what I deserve and I'm not getting it, therefore I need to compensate. I actually have to deal with my heart. I have to deal with my sin. I have to deal with my pride. I have to deal with the uncomfortable feelings that I'm feeling. I have to deal with the things that have pissed me off about this year. Is it okay for me to say that there are things that have pissed me off about this last year? And instead of taking those things to the Lord and having an honest dialogue and allowing Him to sift those things out, to clean my heart, I just bury them. And adventuring with Jesus means that we have to participate We have an ownership and a responsibility over what we do, how we respond, how we interact, but we also get to release the control of having to know the plan, make the plan, or be responsible for the like aftermath. I am just responsible for what I do. But I also have to be honest with myself and with God about where I'm at. Because when we just came up this crazy hard mountain and all I wanted to do was rest in the field of flowers, I just wandered off on my own. I didn't say to God, I need a rest. I'm floundering here. And by not doing that, I robbed an opportunity in our relationship for him to either be the encourager and the guide that he is and say, I know that was a really hard mountain we just walked up, but I'm going to equip you and I'm going to be with you every step of the way for this new mountain that we're about to climb together. Or he's going to say, you're right, hun. We've just done a really hard thing. Let's take a rest for a minute. I'm going to lead you to a waterfall. I'm going to lead you to this green pasture where there's a stream, and we're just going to rest in the safety of his presence. But I just took a third path where I just wandered off in a field that I thought was going to bring me rest, but it didn't. Because ultimately, I don't know what I need. I know what I think I need. I know what I think is going to bring me comfort and joy and fulfillment. And y'all, Thursday, I thought that was a bag of dried mangoes. But it was not. Let me tell you that it was not. What do I have to do now? I have to confess. Well, first I got to own it to myself. Then I got to confess it. And I have to repent. I have to say sorry. I have to do the hard things. I have to lay down my flesh and say, yeah, that's going to feel good for a minute, but what is it that I want really? I want the deep, rich, sustaining joy and energy and life that comes from living the way that God has asked me to live. So here I am, recommitting to recovery in the way that the Lord has asked me to commit to recovery. What have you been doing in the last year and a half? What are the habits and the things that have just maybe snuck in on you where you have adopted an I deserve prideful mindset that maybe you need to confess and repent and re-let go of?